I'm going to go ahead and call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works. This is Tuesday, August 4th of 2020. First up, we have messages from the board members. Do we have any messages from the board this evening?
I just have to thank everyone who's out working every day, and be safe and stay well. Thank you all.
Thanks, Beth. Next, we have petitions and remonstrances. If anyone is here to talk about an item not on our agenda, now is the opportunity to do so. As a reminder, we do have some items in staff reports and other business that we will open up for public comment at that time. So if there's anything not on the agenda and not on staff business that you'd like to make a public comment on, now is the opportunity.
I just had to admit a few more folks there, Kyla, that were in the waiting room for the meeting. So if you could just mention once more.
Sure. Now we're at the time for petitions and remonstrances, which is an opportunity for public comment for anything that is not on our agenda this evening. As I mentioned, we do have several items on our new business, but also items under staff reports and other business, specifically the Lower Cascades and a September closure on 10th Street. So if you wanted to make public comment about either of those items, we will be taking public comment during that staff report time. But if you have public comment not on the agenda, now is the opportunity to do so.
And again, if you could just please add to the chat function or do a raised hand feature. I didn't see any prior, Kyla. I'm not seeing any at this point.
All right, we will go ahead and move on. We have Title VI enforcement up at this time. Do we have anything under Title VI enforcement that has come forward?
No.
Seeing nothing. Next is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda is the approval of minutes for July 21st of 2020. Approve extension of temporary right-of-way request from WDG Construction Group at North College Avenue from Railroad Overpass to West 14th Street through August 14th of 2020. And then approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment on any of the items within the consent agenda?
I'm not seeing any here.
All right, seeing no public comment, is there a motion from the board on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Next up, under new business, we have resolution 2020-36, approve request to seal unsafe structure at 1306 West Kirkwood.
I believe that's going to be Mike Arnold. Where's Mike's iPad?
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
So this is a vacant property. We sent out orders to seal for more than 90 days. We've had some complaints that people are getting into the house that are not authorized to be there. We sent the order to two separate people who we have reason to believe have some interest as ownership. The orders were sent to this address. It's the only address we have for the owners, so likely will be returned, but we did post the orders as well. The windows are open. There's a back door that's open. People are coming in and out freely. Because it's an order to seal for more than 90 days, we need a resolution signed by the board, and that's what we're requesting tonight.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any, Kyla.
Thank you. Seeing no public comment, is there a motion from the board?
I move approval of resolution 2020-36, the request to seal the unsafe structure at 1306 West Kirkwood.
Is there,
Adam, I'm back in the meeting.
There you go.
you're
I'm
back.
back in the meeting. I lost you. Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Dana has made a motion to seal the unsafe structure. Beth, are you able to second?
Yeah, second. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we have approve addendum to contract for preliminary engineering services with American Structure Point, Inc. for Adams Street Sidewalk and Intersection Project.
Good evening. This is Neil Copper, Planning and Transportation Department. This is a project to construct sidewalk along the east side of Adams Street from Patterson to Kirkwood. It also installs physically protected bicycle lanes. It resurfaces the street, and it also replaces the traffic signal equipment at the intersection of Adams and Kirkwood. We're actually wrapping up construction on that now. American Structure Point was our design consultant to do preliminary engineering. During the scoping of the design contract, we did not anticipate that a retaining wall would be necessary, but during design, it came up that it was necessary. So this is an addendum to add $5,075 to that existing contract for those wall services for a new contract not to exceed amount of $155,175. Staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Neil, when will this project be completed?
So right now, the main thing we're waiting on is actually powering up the new signal equipment. That's coordination between our contractor and Duke that has taken a little bit longer than expected. We are hopeful that it will be this week that is online. And then there's a couple just odds and ends to wrap up, but it's at that point, it'd be substantially complete.
Pretty much done. Okay, thank you.
And we discussed during the work session that the new approach with the new design request, the cost for that revised design on our existing contract would be significantly less than the cost of the wall that had been recommended initially. Is that correct?
Correct. The kind of the redesign, we've got a price tag here of $5,000, but we were saving tens of thousands of dollars in the original design on that wall.
Thanks. Any other questions from the board on this item? Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any.
Thank you. Seeing no public comment, is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the addendum to contract for preliminary engineering services with American Structure Point, Inc. for Adams Street Sidewalk and Intersection Project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next is approve easements and rights of way to CBU for repairs of Jordan River Culvert adjacent to BFD headquarters. That's Bloomington Fire Department headquarters.
Hi, good evening. Chris Wheeler with City Legal. I'm here on behalf of the City of Bloomington Utilities Department this evening. And this item on the agenda is to grant a temporary easement and permanent easement across that piece of property under which the Jordan River culvert runs right behind the Bloomington Fire Department. It is for the purpose of permitting City of Bloomington Utilities and its contractors to get on the property to do the work that will be necessary to not only broaden the size of the culvert itself, but to straighten some segments out. I don't know if this particular section of the culvert's being straightened out, but that's the purpose behind this. And the reasoning for the permanent easement is that it'll be a little bit larger because of the fact that the culvert is now going to be a little bit larger itself. So we are asking and recommending that the board approve the temporary and permanent easements that will allow for this particular public work to be performed. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Beth, did you have any questions on this item?
No, I don't. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any in the chats, and I don't see any raised hands.
All right. Is there a motion from the board on this item?
I move that we approve temporary and permanent easements and right-of-ways to CBU for repairs of Jordan River Culvert adjacent to the Bloomington Fire Department headquarters.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next up is approve easements and rights of way to CBU for section of Jordan River Culvert adjacent to Waldron Hill Buskirk Park.
Hi, this is Chris Wheeler with City Legal again, and my story will sound awfully familiar. This is the Jordan River Culvert improvement project that the City of Bloomington Utilities is performing. We're jumping down a couple of blocks to the park down there on 3rd Street between 3rd and Smith Avenue on Lincoln. The culvert does run underneath the park, and we are asking for temporary and permanent easements so that City of Bloomington Utilities and its contractors can get on the property, stage materials, and do the work necessary to do these improvements for this public work. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
Will the park be closed during this construction of or redo of the easements?
Segments of the park will need to be closed because there will be an open ditch. So yes, it'll have fencing and signage and all of the things that are necessary to make the work zone safe. But I don't know that the entire park would need to be closed because there are portions of the park that just won't be touched.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Chris.
Did the Parks Board have to review this, or does it go before another city body aside from Public Works?
Well, Parks Board reviewed, well, I'm sorry, Parks Board did not review this, but members of Parks did review what we're doing here. This particular, the easements themselves only get approved by this board. There will be a memorandum of understanding between City of Bloomington Utilities and City of Bloomington Parks discussing, you know, who's going to pay for what repairs to things that got torn up in the park, you know, what kind of signage needs to be up to make the construction areas safe, assuming that there are going to be areas of the park that remain open. So those types of particulars will get hammered out and fleshed out with Parks, and those types of things will get approved by the Parks Board.
Thank you. Other questions from the board?
Is this to be temporary and permanent also?
That's correct. These are temporary. This is a temporary easement and a permanent easement.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any public comments on this item?
I do not see any in the chats. And I do not see any raised hands.
Thank you. Seeing no public comments, is there a motion from the board on this item?
I move approval of the temporary and permanent easements and rights of way to CBU for repairs of the Jordan River Culvert adjacent to the Waldron Hill Buskirk Park.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is approved pilot project for pickup drop-off zones in downtown corridor, and this is from August 1st of 2020 through September 30th of 2020.
All right, there we go. Got Kaisa unmuted.
Hi, my name is Kaisa Goodman. I'm the Special Projects Manager for the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development. And I'll be speaking about a couple of kind of related projects tonight. The first one is the implementation of temporary pickup drop-off zones in the downtown corridor. And the goal of doing this is to mitigate some of the effects of the fact that COVID recovery has not gone as planned. Obviously, a lot of downtown restaurants and retail establishments have started doing a lot more business in a carry-out or curbside manner. And our goal is to best serve both residents and local businesses with the goal of stimulating economic growth downtown and also complying with health and safety guidelines at both the local and state level, and providing more convenience for both the businesses and their customers. So the basics of this plan are that we have 32 zones in the downtown corridor, each zone comprised of 1 to 2 parking spaces. And each of these parking spaces that is denoted for pickup drop-off has 15 minutes of free parking. People cannot park for longer than that, but they also do not need to pay the meter for those 15 minutes. And these spots, like I said, there's 32 zones for a total of 58 parking spaces, as most of the zones are 2 spaces, but a few of them are just 1. And they are located primarily near restaurants, but also outside of retail establishments. Like Adam said, this is a pilot project, and so the goal was to implement it concurrently with what the City Council has already approved as the intermittent closing of Kirkwood for 2 blocks on the weekends. Hence this pilot being proposed through September 30th to start with, and it will be evaluated as we go along. This has already had some tweaks made to it based on feedback from the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Bloomington, Inc., and individual business owners. And at this point, the zones have been implemented by Parking and Public Works. Is there any further information that would be helpful on this topic?
Thank you. Any questions from the board on this item?
I just wonder if you've let the public know that this is happening, or is it just going to be that they get there and find them available and can use them?
Yes, there was a press release that was put out on Monday.
Okay.
And the information has also been disseminated to downtown businesses. We disseminated the information prior to implementation through DBI in the chamber, and then once it was implemented, sent out the final plan. There's also an interactive map that was sent out in the press release, and which DBI and the chamber have, so that one can see the exact locations of the spots and what businesses they're near.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
And I can put that in the chat if that would be helpful.
Good. Thank you.
And you had mentioned that there will also be like demarcations at the parking spots too. There's like laminated signs that will denote 15-minute parking.
Yes.
At each
Yes,
spot,
there are signs on all of the affected meters indicating that it is 15-minute free parking.
Great.
Will there be any kind of sleeving on the meter to prevent people from trying to park there for longer than the 15 minutes and paying the meter?
So with the signage that we've got up and the way we've done the 180-day order and such, these are now officially just 15-minute zones until. So, you know, we tend not to bag the meters themselves, and we're monitoring pretty closely with the parking enforcement staff, making sure the signs are staying up and such. So we definitely have the ability to issue a ticket if people are there for longer, et cetera. And if we start to have more problems or people are paying anyway, we would then look to maybe try to bag the meter itself.
Great, thanks. And that anticipated my other question, which was, are we able to give citations through parking operations in order to enforce the 15 minutes?
Yeah, since we updated with a 180-day order through the staff and then took the further official action through the Board of Public Works this evening, yes, we would be able to.
And just a point of clarity, though the spaces may be adjacent or near to certain businesses, the spaces are available for use for any quick, pick up, drop off for 15 minutes, regardless of whether you're going into the business that's directly adjacent to the space.
Absolutely, 100% correct. Yeah, they're all, pretty much all of them are located close to mid-block so that it serves the whole block and such. And that was part of the decisions on where the locations would be and such. So yes, absolutely. If it happens to be right in front of, say, Michael's Uptown Cafe, but you're picking up from Bloomington Sandwich Company, it's available to anyone.
Great, thank you. Other questions from the board? Beth, did you have a question?
No.
I think I heard her say no, she didn't.
No, I don't.
Thanks. Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any.
All right, seeing no public comment, is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the pilot project of picked up drop-off zones in downtown corridor, August 1st through September 30th.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have approved pilot project for Parklet program in downtown corridor, and this is also August 1st, 2020 through September 30th of 2020.
Yeah, I will be speaking to that as well. And I do want to clarify that the suggested implementation date of this project is actually August 5th, which is tomorrow, as this project has not been implemented yet. So the rationale behind the Parklet pilot is similar to the rationale behind the pickup drop-off zones. As many restaurants have transitioned to a lot of carryout, there's also a strong interest in expanding outdoor dining, since there are limitations on indoor dining, and dining outdoors is considered to be safer during the pandemic. And we also anticipate that with the return of the IU students, there will be an even greater influx of people who are wanting to dine in restaurants, and that may be restricted again by the limitations that are currently placed on indoor dining. And so the definition of the parklet is a parking space that is converted into outdoor dining. And so there are two aspects to this proposal. The first is that the first parklets on North College Avenue would be implemented tomorrow, August 5th. And they would be located basically on the west side of North College, which on the west side of the square. And we would be looking at the two northmost parking spaces, which is outside of Social Cantina and Smokeworks, and the four southmost parking spaces, which is outside of the Tap, the Inkwell, and the Orbit Room, leaving the 5 parking spaces in the middle of the block, which are adjacent to the retail establishments such as Goods for Cooks and Jail Waters, as regular metered parking. I do also want to note that those 5 spots include the ADA accessible space for the block, so that would not be removed. And the proposal is that this is implemented tomorrow by Public Works and the Fire Department, placing the orange water-filled barriers around the 2 spots on the north end of the block and the 4 spots on the south end of the block. The extent of the responsibility of the city would be doing an initial sweeping of those spaces and setting up the barriers. All other implementation, such as setting up the outdoor dining furniture, the patio furniture, maintaining cleaning, and making sure that all of the necessary permits are gotten, such as an alcohol permit to serve alcohol in that space, or making sure that one's insurance extends to that area, is the responsibility of the restaurant. I also want to clarify that the sidewalk itself will not be impeded, so we want to make sure that we're complying with ADA guidelines. And so the dining will not be contiguous with the restaurant. It will be in the parking space itself, leaving the sidewalk open for ADA compliance purposes. The second aspect of the implementation is following the implementation of the first Parklets tomorrow, an application would go live online. This is a Google Forms application, and it would allow downtown restaurants to apply to have a parklet outside of their restaurant in the spaces, some or all of the spaces adjacent to their restaurant. And for each application that is submitted, they will be considered on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the availability of parking in the area, the parking needs versus the outdoor seating needs, safety, and feasibility. And the recommendation is that these additional parklets be implemented on a bi-weekly basis, with the first being August 19th, and September 2nd, and September 16th. And that is simply for the ease of Public Works and the fire department, so that they aren't constantly having to go out and make adjustments to the parklets on a rolling basis, but rather that if there are multiple additions to be made, that they can do them all once every 2 weeks. And this was an idea that was brought to us by some of the downtown businesses, and it is based on and modeled on what many other kind of peer communities have done in the face of COVID to expand outdoor dining options. The other consideration I want to mention, specifically since we just talked about the pickup drop-off zones, is any block in which parklets take up more than a third of the total parking spaces will have any pickup drop-off zones in that block removed. For example, the block of North College will not have both pickup drop-off zones and the parklets, because that would cut down too much on the regular metered parking. Are there any questions?
Questions from the board on this item?
I do. Since this is happening tomorrow, have the restaurants involved on the west side of the courthouse, have they all gotten their permits? Have you checked to be sure that they're all permitted?
Beth, we reached out to them today to make sure that everybody was
Okay.
Ready to go for tomorrow, and we've not heard anything back that anybody isn't. So
Isn't. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I also want to add that we have spoken with the retail establishments in that block and made sure that we're meeting their needs as well.
I assume it's up to the restaurants themselves to monitor like proper safe distance of tables and such as well, right?
yeah, so yes, absolutely the onus comes to the business owners, the restaurant owners, to assure that the proper social distancing and physical distancing requirements per the state and county health mandates are in order. I do know that the health department is taking phone calls on reports where that's not occurring, and that they're following up with any business that they're getting reports about to let them know of what they've what's been brought to them. So yes, the onus is on the business owners, and then, with follow-up from health department as needed. And we've really, I will say, with whether it's the closure of Kirkwood or the, this Parklet program and et cetera, we're really stressing with the business owners and the downtown business retailers group and everything, the importance of the physical distancing. We recognize we have a lot of returning students coming over the next few weeks, and really making sure that, we're supportive of their business needs, but that they're also very much in compliance with all the proper public safety protocol, public health protocols at this point in time. And we're going to monitor, and we'll make sure we're following up as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions from the board on this item?
Did you say that they could file an application through ESD? Is that where business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beth, did you have a question?
No, I don't.
Is there any public comment on this item?
I do not see any in the chat. If anyone has any public comment on this, to either post to the chat or raise their hand via the Zoom function.
I will also share the draft of the application in the chat. Should that be helpful?
All right, seeing no public comment, is there a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the pilot project for the Parklet program in downtown corridor, August 5th, 2020 through September 30th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have award construction contract for South College Mall Road.
Hello, this is Roy Ayton.
There we go.
Am I there?
Yep, good.
You're here.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, this is Roy Ayton with the Planning and Transportation Department. Yesterday during the work session, the board opened up sealed bids for the repaving of South College Mall Road from East 3rd Street to East Morris Pike. Part of that project will also be repairing some of the curb ramps, installing bike lanes on College Mall Road, and doing the other signals, the other striping for the project. The board received 2 bids on the project. The first bid was from E&B Paving for $494,950. And the second bid was from Milestone at $555,876.30. We have reviewed the bids, and we are making a recommendation to award the contract to E&B Paving for $494,950.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I'll just add to what Roy said. We're very excited where the bids came in. We are expecting that this paving project may go into may start next spring. There's a shortage of subcontractors that can do the final lane markings, and both contractors had told us that. Both contractors that bid had told us that. So this is likely to be one where we encumber the funds in 2020 and perform this as a very early paving project next spring. And if anything changes there, we'll make sure to keep the board up to speed. I guess the other thing to add there, it was very important still to get this project out to bid to meet our NDOT requirements. And so that was one of the big things, is to get this under contract. And so appreciate Roy's work and all the staff's work to get this under contract. That's all I have.
Beth, did you have a question?
No.
Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any in the chat. I don't see anybody doing the raised hand motion.
All right, seeing no public comment, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we award the construction contract for the South College Mall Road project to E&B Paving for $494,950.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Beth, did you have a vote? Beth, did you cast your vote in favor?
I unmuted you, Beth.
Oh, it's muted again.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Okay, we
Great.
have 3 votes in favor. Motion passes.
Great.
Thanks. Next up is staff reports and other business. And under staff reports and other business, we have Parks and Recreation staff report on extension of Lower Cascades pedestrian closure.
Right. Paula, you can jump right in.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, thank you. I'm Paula McDevitt. I'm the director of the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm here this evening to give the board an update on the Lower Cascades Pilot Road conversion project. I'd like to go ahead and attempt to share my screen.
You should have that ability.
Goodness, hang on.
Well, Beth is there. We go.
Is it up?
It's trying. Yes, now it is.
All right. Well, let me.
I won't lie, Paula. I was very proud of myself earlier when I shared my screen for a short moment.
Okay. So everyone can see, just confirm that you can see the pilot project map while I give my update. Just a little bit of background on the project. Back on March 3rd, this board gave approval for the Lower Cascades Pilot Road Conversion Project. And this pilot project converted the old State Road 37 north through Lower Cascades Park from a 2-lane road to a bicycle and pedestrian only trail. This particular project is one of 7 publicly amenity improvement projects being funded by bicentennial bonds issued back in 2018. And that those amenities are to extend and expand and integrate Bloomington's network of trails, biking trails, and provide a safe and accessible destination for people visiting the park. The pilot project has a couple of goals that I would like to review. The first one was to provide a much needed bicycle and pedestrian connection from Miller Showers Park on the city's north side along Worley Pike to the Ferguson Dog Park, Griffey Lake Trails, and Cascades Park Trail. Another goal is to reintegrate the park's divided space and reinforce its identity as a destination. And then a third goal to pilot removing motorized vehicles from the road to establish a safer environment for cyclists, hikers, runners, playground users, and other park visitors. The pilot project started March 13th, and a little bit further along in the report, I will be addressing the impacts of COVID on the pilot because it happened right at the same time. But at this point in the pilot project, we're about 20 weeks in to the pilot project, and I would like to introduce Dave DeKid, who's also on this call, as she is a member of the team who designed the survey and has been doing survey polls that we've been posting on the park's website to keep the community updated on the survey responses. I would also like to mention that this pilot project is a team effort from staff members, not only from the Parks Department, but from Planning and Transportation, Office of the Mayor, and Public Works. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Data, who's going to share a screen, I believe.
Great. Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. Let's see. So as Paula mentioned, my name is Dave DeKid. I'm the Director of Innovation. And for the Lower Cascades project, there were a lot of different data points that we collected. Some of them were just out of curiosity. How are people getting to the park? What days are they more likely to come? What kinds of things are they visiting while they're there? But most importantly, the 2 data points that we wanted to collect were, would you revisit the park during the course of the pilot? So the graph that you're seeing is the first of those data points, and this is over time. So we actually launched, or people had access to the survey before the pilot launched. And so these 9 responses at the very beginning, at the before pilot stage, refer to those folks who took the survey before experiencing the pilot. So you can see that sentiment on would they return to the pilot is low because they hadn't experienced it. So starting with the first period in March, after people actually had the experience of the pilot itself, of the road conversion, then you can see that sentiment went way up, and people began to see the value of it, experience the value of it. It was no longer theoretical. And over the course of the survey, or the survey period so far, the pilot so far, sentiment has remained really high on people definitely returning. And we're now, this chart shows through the end of July, which is a partial period. This next graph shows in response to the question of would you like for the road conversion to continue? And I find this one really interesting because prior to the pilot, again, the idea of the road conversion was really theoretical. And you can see that definitely do not want is very high. But once people who actually visited the site began to experience the pilot, then we saw the sentiment flip, so that the people who definitely did want the pilot to continue, the road conversion to continue, really increased and stayed fairly steady through the course of the pilot so far. We also asked people just to provide comments so that we had rich context for why they were responding to the different questions that they were, and we began to tag them according to these different categories. Overwhelmingly, the response in the comments has been positive. You can also see that there are a high number of negative and also some safety and improvement issues, as well as accessibility issues. So within the accessibility tagged comment items, it's all about concern for the people who are less likely to use the road conversion right now. And these are people who were enjoying the park when it was accessible by car in both lanes. So some of the comments are on the screen there. Improvement suggestions varied, and I won't go through all of those, but I would like to note that a number of the negative issues were also tied to safety issues. And this is because there's a perception that with the road closed, that emergency vehicles would not be allowed to use the road, and that patrolling is limited. There are also a couple of comments about that the street isn't being swept, and so there's a little bit of debris there. This is all the data that we have collected to date, just to give you a sense of what people who have experienced the pilot are saying about it, and how that compares with people who thought about the pilot in a theoretical way.
Great, thank you, Devta. And now just to address the period that when the pilot started, which as I mentioned was March 13th, right when COVID hit and the community started to shut down. We proceeded with closing this section of the road. I will say over time, we have made improvements to the barricades and our signage down there. And that again, as we do the data pulls from the survey and are going through the comments, we are addressing security needs and comments. And initially there was a lot of feedback about the barricades, and maybe it was a little confusing as to where you could park. So we continue to respond to that feedback throughout. We are doing a lot of communication to really drive people to experience this pilot project and hopefully go and experience it and fill out the survey versus not experiencing it and filling out the survey. We really want to get people down there. We have signage on the barricades themselves and also on the shelter houses that have a QR code. The sign does explain the pilot project, and a QR code that people can go directly to the survey as they're finishing their walk and complete the survey right when they're still in the park. And I would also like to emphasize that all the parking lots are still open. The parking lots next to the Sycamore Shelter and also the 2 parking lots on either side of the playground. The small gravel parking lot that you drive over, what I call the makeshift water slide, that one is closed because that water slide falls right practically in the middle of this pilot section. So currently, since the weather changed and kids are on that water slide, there is no longer a car people interaction occurring. And I think we've all are aware that for all these years there would be that, pausing or pulling the kids off the slide so cars could come across. So actually, in some of my walks down there, that water slide is still being used, and I've actually seen kids with their towels out on the pilot section of the road, enjoying that whole space. So again, that just addresses the communication, driving people to our website. We've kept that updated throughout with the map that I put up, but also these monthly data pulls, we are posting those survey results as well. Now, getting back to COVID, parks in general and trails have experienced an incredible increase in the number of people visiting our parks and using our trails. As an outlet, people are seeking opportunities for physical activity. And within weeks of COVID occurring, our parking lots were overflowed at several of our trails. This particular pilot project was sort of an unforeseen extra space where people could get out and enjoy the pilot. And indeed, we've seen, as Dave mentioned, the number of surveys that have been turned in to date. We've had a number of people use this. 283 people at least have used it and filled out a survey. But at the same time, the other side of the coin with COVID is that the pilot has not been subject to the normal pressures of how this road was used. So with MCCSC shutting down North High School, obviously not in session, the IU student population exiting in March and not returning until here in a few weeks. So we have had feedback that this was a peculiar time to have run the pilot project, but again, on the parks side of the coin and getting people out using our trails, it was a welcome relief outlet to be able to do that. So the team in discussion, and again, listening to the feedback that we've had from constituents who live in that area, we hear that it was an odd time. So with that, while we're not asking for your approval today, because we want to give plenty of time for our ideas to resonate and for people to think about, but what we would like to do is come back in September and ask for an extension of the pilot project through June of 2021. Hopefully, no one knows how back to normal we're going to return or how quickly that's going to happen, but we do know our population numbers are going to increase here in a few weeks. That would give us the fall season, winter, and a spring. We would continue to collect the data with the current survey that we have, but I'm going to have Dave to give just a brief update on our thoughts about running a parallel second survey at the same time that would allow people who normally access the park via vehicle a chance to respond. So I'll let Dave expand on that a little bit.
Right, thank you. So as Paula mentioned, we wanted to collect the data with the current survey really to track sentiment of after people have had the experience of the pilot project itself. But we know that there are a lot of people who would normally access this section of road by car, and they're being impacted in many other ways, some of them positive, as Paula mentioned, that this is now a space that has a lot of abilities that it didn't used to have with the road closure. It also is a closed road, so it's having that impact on people as well. However, with most of our population gone and lots of the study that preceded the pilot mentioned the stressors of this being used as a pathway for North High School, for MCCSC busing, for an alternate route for game days. And we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to capture that information and also the impact that people are feeling, whether they are using the road closure or whether they are unable to complete their former behaviors because of the pilot. So the second survey, if the extension is approved, would capture what is the impact of the pilot project on your day-to-day experience, and allow us to, again, track sentiment, but also highlight any blind spots that we may have and round out the picture of the data that we're collecting. And I'm happy to answer any questions about data.
Well, great. Yep, Kyla, go ahead.
Are there questions? Adam, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I was just going to just remind folks, I think it's important to know, the board's not taking any official action this evening. This is kind of a staff report. We'll be coming back to the board, at a later meeting to ask for formal action from the board. But appreciate Paula and Dave to all their efforts on this. It's been, trying to navigate all the different things right now. So if you do have public comment, I do ask that you let us know in the chat function or raise your hand. And then Paula or Kyla, if you want to go to board questions, I've got a few people that would like to offer comment.
Great. We'll go to board questions first, and then we'll open it up for public comment. Go ahead, Beth.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I just want to thank you all, the team, for the work that you've done on this. And I really appreciate the way that you have communicated with the public with the survey and the signage. And I think that's really important. And thanks again for all of your work. It's been a great project.
One question I had, have there been any, I know there's been a lot of news about this project, and of course, all of that kind of came out right before the pandemic hit, and so there's probably been not as much news in the sense of, the news cycle being taken up by other critical public health needs. But I wondered if there have been efforts to try to reach out to people who may not be taking the survey because they're out, in the path, but they may be some of those who are impacted by the change in traffic flow. Has there been, like, when people were noticed in the neighborhoods nearby, has there been any effort to get some of their feedback right now too?
Yeah, I'll answer that. And I see Sue is on this call. We have been in direct communication throughout this pilot project with District 2. I have attended Sue's monthly meeting, and I see several of those participants here tonight. And absolutely, we have made an effort to be transparent and communicate and answer questions and respond all along the way.
I'll just add, that's one thing I've been hearing from Paula, week in and week out on this. She's been going monthly, and I really applaud her for sticking with that and making sure she's getting that full feedback. So thanks, Paula.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have heard some folks that have gone down there and really enjoyed it. And I do really appreciate that, because I was reading through some of the comments on the survey, and I appreciate that you guys are going to send out another survey because based on that feedback to ask some different questions. So I do appreciate that. I think that's important. How many of and I know that you've already addressed some of the changes that you've already taken based on some of that feedback, but in terms of like the extension that will be seeing next meeting. How many of the changes that we've heard in the feedback do we expect to be able to make during that extension period? For example, like there were a couple people that said the signage, even though you mentioned, Paula, that there's some good signage there and some QR codes, and that's great. But folks that are like driving up to it might not see it if they don't get out of their car. That was one thing that I noticed. Accessibility, like is there anything that we could do during that extension timeframe that we can do to help with accessibility? So I was just wondering if you could either now or over the next couple of weeks get us information on what we plan to do differently in the extension period.
Yeah, I'll jump in here to start. We're reading through those comments. We're trying to understand them. Like the idea of the street sweeping, we've got some pretty heavy barricades in place. And, if we're going to make this a longer term thing, we'll coordinate and get down there with a street sweeper somehow, get the surface cleaned up. As far as accessibility, it depends on how they're defining it and such. If it's an actual accessibility issue within the site, yes, we can definitely work with parks and others to, try to address any accessibility site issues within the site parameters. But if it's more of an issue of, that you can't drive straight to, all the parking lots are still open and such. So allowing people that accessibility is still there. If it's accessibility through the park via vehicle, that's a completely different topic, obviously. So Paul, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or.
Yeah, I'd like to add, definitely we're reading through those comments and that jumped right on there. We can certainly do it, cleaning up the sweeping of the street and that. But I also would like to mention that Parks is also working on design. And I know that I believe Dave Williams, maybe he's exited the call. We are under design for construction of an accessible trail from the Sycamore shelter all the way back to the waterfall shelter. And that is under design, and we're doing a creek improvement project at the same time. That is slated for next spring, early summer. So that will definitely address some of the accessibility issues. The one parking lot, as I mentioned, that has been closed down is the gravel lot on the other side of the water slide. And it's within yards distance from the small playground, the small parking lot on the south side of the playground to the waterfall shelter, which is, I think there's some comments about that, more difficult to get to that waterfall shelter. We also have an inclusive recreation coordinator, Amy Shrake, on staff who does consult with us, and would definitely bring her in to take a look at some things that we can do for the extension period. So absolutely, Dana, will take that under consideration and make that part of our report when we come back to you in September.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, any other questions from board members at this time? Okay, hearing none. Adam, do you want to go ahead and let the public comment open up? Oh, you're muted.
I will take care of unmuting everyone is ironically what I was saying. I've got Greg Alexander up first, then it will be Carol Canfield, Paul Kern, and then Councilmember Scambolari. Again, trying to limit comments to 3 minutes, maximum maybe 5 minutes, but Greg Alexander, you're up first.
Hi, thanks. Hi, I'm Greg Alexander. I was there on the first day of this, I think, because that was the first day that the school was closed and I wanted to take my kids to the park. And it is awesome. I was on a bike with a trailer taking them, and it was amazing how much less stressful it is not having traffic always riding on my butt. And the unsafe passing behavior has obviously been completely resolved, but that wasn't even the best part. The best part was about a month later when I got a bicycle for my 8-year-old, and he was able, he was just brand new to riding a bike, and there was no way I would have had him on that road normally. But with the road closed there, it was great. When he was new to the bike, he rode all the way up about, 3 or 4 miles from my house to Griffey Lake. And that that was amazing experience for him. My 6-year-old, I don't know, you all probably, your kids are smart, but my kids are morons. I let my 6-year-old just run in the street there, and it's amazing that he's you know, I'm not afraid for him in the park anymore. I want to bring to the attention that, you know, if you're walking up there, there really are no alternatives. Like last year, this time, this part of this road was closed for some sort of utility work, and there was nothing. I wound up taking my bike trailer on Kinzer Pike, which was just an unbelievable nightmare to take my kids to the park. So, you know, I understand drivers are upset. They're going to have to go a half mile, maybe even some of them a mile out of their way. But I was willing to go 2 miles out of my way. And there just simply isn't any option. I live so close to that park that it is walking distance. My kids have been able to walk that distance for 6 years, but they haven't walked to that park until just a couple months ago. And I just want to urge you guys to make this permanent just as quickly as you can, because the moment you make this permanent, they have some money budgeted and they need to start using that money to improve the approaches. Because like that bit of I guess it's Old 37 that goes up to it, like from the south from Miller Showers Park, that needs a sidewalk. That needs, I don't know what it needs, but it needs money is what it needs. And also along Kinzer Pike between Clubhouse Drive and the North High School, that's a project that's ready, but it needs money, and we can't decide to spend that money until we free it up and decide we're not going to waste $2 million or whatever building a side path along this route. And it really just drives home how poorly behaved the drivers are there. If you look on the pavement at where there is a parking lot right by the playground, just in that very short stretch of pavement, there's a huge tire mark from someone just burning rubber for no reason, you know, and you get north of the playground and suddenly it's a speedway. People are going 30, 40 miles an hour, even though the speed limit's supposed to be 20. And suddenly I'm afraid for my kids again. And we just need to do something about this. But thanks for your attention.
Greg, thank you for your comments. Next up, we have Carol Canfield. I'm working to get Carol unmuted, and Carol is unmuted. Carol, would you like to offer your public comment?
Yes, my concerns are that closing the road during a pandemic and making a decision on the permanence of that closure seems ludicrous at best. Nothing's normal, whether the decision's made at the end of December or whether it's extended to the end of May. It just doesn't make any sense any way you look at it. And would we not be better served to table this until we are in a more normal situation with IU games back in place, see how move-ins are going? Why not spend that time revamping the survey? And I am glad to hear there's a second survey coming out, but with truly neutral questions, not meant to sway in any particular direction. We need to reopen this road and do the project another time when we can get honest answers. This is not the time. This road is the only means we have to get out of Blue Ridge on days when traffic is backed up on Dunn, North Walnut, and Kinzer Pike. We don't have any other options. We can't get anywhere in this time if we don't go through Lower Cascades. We really need this road to be open. Please, for the sake of the people who live on the north side, open. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comment, Carol. Paul Kern up next. I'm going to lower your hand and I'm going to unmute you. Oh, shoot. Where did Paul go? I just had Paul.
Yeah, he's still there. I can unmute.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
All right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, but Mr. Kern, you're ready to go.
Okay, well, thanks. You know, I wanted to address the closing because we met with Sue on August 1st, just a couple of days ago, and she told us about this meeting. And I just put that up on Nextdoor just to let people know that this meeting was occurring. And because we're talking about surveys, this was a completely, I didn't put anything in the thing other than that this was when the meeting was. And I got 27 comments back, most of them saying that they don't want the road closed. And there's no question in the survey that says, I would like this, I would like Old Cascades Road closed permanently, agree or disagree. There's nothing in the survey. I put this out just as a neutral comment. I just said, this is when the meeting is. And Sue kind of went over a couple of options that we're doing, but that questionnaire that I gave, and it wasn't even a questionnaire, I got an overwhelming response of people who do not want the road closed. And I don't know if the survey that we're doing right now, I know the survey we're doing right now is fantasy. The most question they say is, do you want to have a multi-purpose road? They don't say, do you want to close the road? Agree, disagree. There's nothing there in the survey that says that. And are we planning on putting that question in the next survey? I got an overwhelming number of people who said they don't want it closed. And that what concerns me is I don't care if it gets closed or not closed, but I think this, the will of the people or the people have spoken or whatever, I'm not sure we're touching that, because these people are all in neighborhoods like Carol Canfield said, in the north part of the town, and they feel like this is going to be an incredible drag on them. And I was just surprised how many people responded just off that comment. And if we don't get something down in the survey that says that the road will be closed, are you okay with that? I don't know how the survey is going to get everybody.
And I do want to add, I was at the meeting where Paula spoke, and there were comments that said, we like the park system, we think the park system is great. And she interpreted that to mean close the road. And that's literally not what they said.
Sorry, who was that just giving a comment?
Oh, it's my wife.
Okay, ma'am, what was your name just for the official record?
Linda Kern.
Linda Kern? Okay, thank you.
That's our, I don't care if 90% of the people say they want the road closed, then let the will of the people be there. But let's at least get a survey that shows what people want and they don't want. And if the second survey is going to have a question like that in it, so where people can actually directly answer it, I'd be okay with that. But otherwise, I can't trust the survey.
Great. Kyla, are you okay if we allow Dave to offer a response? I believe she was looking to respond.
Yes, that's fine.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I want to go into the survey questions just so that everyone is aware of what the questions that are being asked are there. We ask how people are getting there, whether they're able to find parking, whether it's easy and convenient, what they enjoyed, how likely they are to return, how safe they perceive them to be. And then the final question before just general comment is a range of between do you want the road to remain closed? And the range is from definitely do not want, mostly do not want, I don't care either way, I mostly want it to, and I definitely do want it to. And we wanted to capture that range as opposed to a binary yes or no, because as humans, that's how we feel things, is we've got a range of emotions about them. And there are somebody who are on those polar ends, but there's also, as we've noted, a number of people who are in between. I'm not sure if Paul was at the beginning of the meeting today, but I did show the graph, and because I've got.
We took the survey. That's not what the question said. The question said, do you wish to continue? No, it didn't even say, do you wish to continue? It said, would you like a family-friendly, multi-purpose road? And there were people we talked to who thought multi-purpose meant cars included. It did not, it wasn't on a continuum. It was, do you want to continue to have a multi-purpose road? Or was it?
I don't think that was our survey then, because we have, I mean, I can bring up the actual survey and show the final question, but the final question before the comments is.
Well, we took
the survey and Paula showed us the survey. And Paula showed us what she took to mean supportive.
The survey results that I share are the city survey that has been part of the pilot project from the start. There's only one survey, and that's the one that Dave is referencing.
Are you saying, but Paul, are you saying there is a question on the survey that says, yes, I do want to have this road closed on a permanent basis?
I don't think. Go ahead, Paula, please.
No, there's this question that Dave is referencing before the comments, where it's a continuum of responses that people can answer. But this is what this meeting is about, is to hear the public comment and the input and will be, designing this second survey. So, taking notes and taking this all in.
The survey we took and the ones you read to us never mentioned, do you want the road closed on a continuum or any other way?
I'm going to read the exact wording of the question that we have. On a scale from 1 to 5, how much would you like this road segment to continue to be a family-friendly multi-use trail?
That's not, do you want it closed?
So for purposes of being able to capture that range, we want to know the degree to which you would like this to continue or not. And at one end of the scale is definitely do not want. The other end is definitely do want.
You didn't make it clear that it's about closing the road to traffic, car traffic.
Okay. All right. So Dave, so thank you for your information. Mr. and Mrs. Kern, thank you for providing it. Would you like to offer any other public comment at this point in time?
No, you got our point. We're worried that
I appreciate that.
Thanks, yeah.
Yes. And again, we'll be taking this. This is not up for official action this evening. This is up for the discussion that we're having. So I very much appreciate everyone's input. I believe Councilmember Scambolari would like to wrap up the public comment. I don't see anyone else that has said they'd like to comment at this point. So Councilmember Scambolari.
Thank you all very much. I'm Sue Scambolari. I'm the City Council representative for District 2 on the north side. So I obviously have more than a sporting interest in how all this turns out. A couple things I want to say. First and foremost, thank you to Paula and to her team. Paula has given up, 3 Saturday afternoons now, I think, to spend time in my constituent meetings and to field questions and to pour over maps. And I am grateful for that on behalf of my constituents. So thank you for taking time to do that. Two general concerns that I have. First of all, I think you've heard a little bit here about survey construction. And again, just for the record, that question 11, kind of the pivot question about whether this is a go or no go. On a scale from 1 to 5, how much would you like this road segment to continue to be a family-friendly, multi-use trail? Just to put a finer point on this, I think it's fine that it's a Likert scale. I think it's fine that we have a continuum of responses. My concern with that question is, I think, as Linda Kern said, it doesn't explicitly say, and we're going to close the road to do it. And so let's not shy away from that. I mean, if that's the case, let's actually do that. And then a comment actually as much to Carol and to Ralph Shaw and to the Kerns too. Please feel welcome to share those next door comments with Paula or with her team as well, because I've skimmed them, but I would encourage you as a Blue Ridge Neighborhood Association to share that. So again, if we move forward with a pilot period, I would really encourage us to revisit this survey. And if I may say, be more clear in what we're actually asking and proposing. A bigger picture item, so kind of Roman numeral 2 for me, one of our concerns, and I share this with Paula, is that we've gotten weird data. We're in the middle of COVID-19. There are, in a way, more people going to parks because they're working from home and they can, and there are fewer people going to parks because there are fewer people in Bloomington right now. No matter how you slice it, this is weird data. I do agree that more pilot time is needed, but I question whether or not it's right to do that now. This is not a normal year. IU is sort of starting up, but everyone's leaving again at Thanksgiving if we make it that far. Traffic patterns are going to change. There are no event weekends per se that will disrupt traffic on the north side in the way that some of the residents have talked about. So we don't really test it that way. So I know it would give us an opportunity to gather more data, but I question whether or not that data would be useful because it's still all COVID influenced and it's not happening during a normal time. So I would encourage us to do a couple things. First of all, if we go ahead with a pilot, please rework the survey. Second, please give some thought to postponing this pilot. Maybe, and maybe revisiting it next year. Surely by next year, knock on wood, we will be back to more normal patterns in Bloomington. And I think we'll get better data. If we want to make a data-driven decision, let's get good data. And then I would also encourage us, one of the things that kind of struck me about the survey, and I didn't connect these dots till today, the survey speaks in terms of two options. It's a toggle switch. Either the road is converted and it's a multi-use path, or nothing happens at all and it stays open and cars continue to use it. It doesn't explore any other possibilities. So what if we were to refine the road and add a multi-use path, protected path along the side of it or somewhere else in the park to get north-south? We've only treated it as a binary option, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I would encourage us to consider that as well. But thank you especially to residents of Blue Ridge and Fritz Terrace who have been with us tonight. I appreciate all that you're doing too. And again, thank you to Paula and to Parks. You have been great about staying in touch with constituents, and I thank you for that.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. Kyla, I guess I would turn it back over to you at this point. I appreciate everybody offering their public comment. One thing that staff would be considering as we, bring forward a recommendation and discuss this more with the board at a future meeting is to, whether or not we want to shut the, if we were to change the pilot project or open the road and reclose the road, that is one thing I have concern about, but we'll, address that as we would, continue in these conversations. So I do appreciate everyone's comments and input here. Kyla, would you like to go ahead and take back over?
Sure, I'll go ahead and take over. And I think, I have a comment, and I wasn't sure if maybe some other board members may also want to just chime in with a closing comment as we wrap this discussion up for this evening, knowing that this is something we're going to continue to talk about and see again. I share the concerns that Adam just expressed. For a couple different reasons. I think that you just saw tonight, we made some approvals of changes in use of right-of-way because of the current pandemic. And I think that we are seeing a lot of park activity and use right now, and traffic is diminished in many ways compared to what we would normally be experiencing. So I agree that we need to see the data when traffic is elevated. So, I think the pilot will need to address how we gather that data. Right now, based on what I, have learned, I would be concerned about the idea of reopening this road right at this time. So that's just a thought that I have that I welcome some more conversation about if that's something that is considered. Is there any other board member comment before we close out this topic?
Tyler, are you talking about maybe extending it beyond the December? So don't not extend it, but extend it longer so we actually can collect some more normal data.
Yeah, I think we need to be able to collect the data, and I also think that right now is an unusual time when the need for park space and walking space and the fact that traffic is depleted, all of those factors in my mind make it a good time to allow people to use this roadway for walking and multi-use purposes other than driving. And at the same time, trying to figure out how we can feel like we're moving forward with the best data during some high traffic times. And I think, unfortunately, the future is extremely unknown right now. So we don't know when we're going to see increased traffic. We do clearly have events that happen in the spring that do increase traffic. And if any of those events would take place into the spring semester, we might be able to gather that data without the pilot having to extend across a fall term. So it's just all something to think about. But I echo Adam's concerns about having a reopening of the roadway and then another pilot closure of the roadway and what that might create.
And just, kind of last comment from staff on this. And, obviously we've got time to consider, we've got time to get the new survey out, we've got time to take comments on the survey and how it's written. And so that's the one good thing we've got here. And do want, all the members of the public that have spoke tonight to know that, their comments are being heard and that we'll try to make some adjustments as needed. And really, have this be as open and transparent and everything as possible. So I appreciate everybody's comments. Kyla, we're not taking any formal action here. We do have other items on the staff report.
Correct. Yeah.
I'll let you wrap this up how you'd like.
All right. I will get my packet back in order here. One moment. All right, the second item under staff reports and other business is request from Core Planning Strategies to discuss September closure of 10th Street for placement of crane.
I'm going to just handle this one on behalf of Josh Schism with Core Planning Strategies, our project manager for the parking garage projects that are taking place in Bloomington right now. With the Trades District garage construction ongoing, it's likely and it's planned that a request for a September closure of 10th Street will be coming to the board in order to facilitate the placement of a large crane. So the crane can properly move giant panels into place. And so we will be just, that closure is between, I can't think of the new north-south, Madison and Rogers on 10th Street is what will be requested. So we'll come back with a more formal request, but just wanted to get that out there for from a staff report perspective. Outside of that, I will not make any other further comments as a staff report this evening, other than to just say thanks to all the staff in Public Works and throughout Parks and Rec, police, fire, utilities, all of the various city functions that are ongoing. I just applaud all of our staff members and employees and for all that is taking place in these trying times. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Uh-oh, I think we lost Kyla. Dana, and we still have Beth. Kyla's back. Kyla's back.
I'm back. I'm
okay.
Back. All right. Sorry that I missed. I'm guessing I missed that update.
It was riveting.
Give it a All right. Well, someone else hasn't already taken the reins. We've got approval of claims next.
Yes. Happy to answer any questions on claims.
Are there any questions from the board on claims?
No.
Is there a motion on claims?
I move that we approve claims $2,334,918.70.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Great.
And if there is nothing else here on our business, I will call for adjournment.
Thank you so much, all. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.